Hi everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Inspired by You MindKite Podcast. Make sure if you're watching this as a trailer, you're clicking, subscribing and sharing. Make sure you're joining the app as well. That's where you're going to see the full podcast. I'm joined today by the absolutely magnificent Michael Drane. He is a mental health and recovery advocate. He's also doing amazing things on Clubhouse. He's running the Addict and Recovery Clubhouse rooms and the Celebrity Hangout, which really interests me as well. But before all that, I'll pass you over to Michael. He can introduce himself properly and we'll dig a little into his backstory. Thank you, Michael, for joining us. How are you doing? You okay?
I'm really well. Thanks, Jamie, for having us on. You know, this is my first podcast. Excuse the lockdown hair still, that needs coming off. Yeah. So
I'm the same.
yeah, I didn't wear the cap. Maybe I should have done. Mental health and recovery advocate. You know, we're gonna delve into the background of where I've come from in my own kind of mental health addiction and all kinds of craziness that surrounded those dark times, you know. But I'm on Clubhouse a lot. I'm doing a lot of mental health rooms. I've got the Addiction and Recovery Clubhouse now. It's kind of taking off, you know. It's brand new. So we welcome more members to come and join, and you know, we're going to try and build that up as a community. It's kind of that sharing back, you know. I can only keep what I've got by giving it away, you know. So it's kind of another addict helping another addict. So that's what we're doing. You know, we're not getting paid for it. You know, we're taking time out of our lives to try and help run rooms to support others in all kinds of different addictions and all kinds of different recoveries. There's still so much that I don't know about. You've got gambling. It wasn't a part of my story, but it is a part of someone else's story. And what we say there, you know, someone's shared story could be someone else's survival guide. So it's very, very important. And that we keep doing it rooms, and Clubhouse is fantastic. It's a fantastic outlet for that as well.
Yeah. So Michael, anytime I meet anyone that does anything as an advocate, ambassador, trying to make change in the mental health field and especially the recovery and the sort of addiction field, they've usually went through something themselves. And I know you're no different. We've spoke previously and I've heard your story, and like most of the guests that come on the Inspired by You series, it's something that usually, you know, touches me and impacts me, and which I'm sure will many others. I'm just wondering if we can focus on that and just go back into your sort of story, and you know, we'll be touching on, you know, addiction and some sort of traumatic experiences and some hardships, certainly. And I'm just wondering if you'd be able to, you know, you can tell us as much as you want, but I know your story is really powerful, and if you could dig deep for us, I would really appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely. I can go back to probably around age 9. If I want to go back that far to realise when I was first an addict, the behaviour from that came from around the age of 9, when I was trying to manipulate people to give me alcohol at such a young age. You know, I've gone back that far to realise, although it wasn't a problem back then, it clearly, you know, it started from somewhere. So I can go back to there, you know, being in, living down in Chesington, and my nan at the time, she lived in Tunbridge with my granddad. So we used to go down when I was a child. You know, this is how young I was. I used to have a colouring book there. You know, I was young, you know, so when we go around there, we'd have, like, you know, sandwiches and stuff like that. And in the evenings, my nan would cook a meal. And like, your nan's food's always the best, you know, it'd be really, really good. And then we'd play cards after. And I remember my granddad's drinks cabinet was like a corner unit. And I was only young, but it was kind of like a little sweet shop for me. That's how I looked at it, and that's how I can go back and remember. You know, and I always tried to get alcohol from him, and I'd do it in a way that I'd manipulate him. It first started off that he'd have, I don't know, sherry. And I'd be like, oh, what's that, Granddad? What's that? Like, oh, you can't have that. You can't have that. It's like, and the percentages on the bottle, I'd look at them and I'd be like, well, that's higher than the last one, you know. I need that next one. So I'd start off with a little bit of sherry. Then I'd work my way to manipulate him to give me some like cherry brandy, because he had all these magnificent coloured, like different shaped bottles. I was intrigued. I was really intrigued. Then out came a bottle of, it was a square bottle, and he was like, you're not having that. I was like, what's this, Granddad? What's this? And he's like, it's Cointreau. He goes, you can smell it. And I was like, it was orange liqueur. It became a big drink of mine as well. So too sherry, so too cherry brandy, anything sweet. I loved it. It was my sweets. It was my sweets at such a young age. I wanted it. And I would manipulate him and my nan into giving me a little bit. And I still remember this time that he finally gave in. He was always going to give in. I'll manipulate you until you give me what you want. And I did. So finally, I got that little glass of Cointreau. It's 40%. I'm 9 years old. And I was just like, you can't down it. It's not a drink to down. You got to sip it. I remember I had my tongue in that glass when I was drinking it. I just literally didn't take it away from my mouth until it gone. I didn't drink it. I just literally, it was just slowly going inside of me, and that warming sensation in my chest. It was different from the last couple of drinks. You know, they were like 15%, 20. This one burnt me. You know, and I was just like, wow. You know, I felt so amazing. I slept like a baby on the way home back to Chesington. But that was at the first point in my life that I can go back to and go, yeah, that's not right. I shouldn't have been manipulating my grandparents into giving me alcohol. You know, they didn't know I was an addict. They didn't know what I was trying to achieve from it. But and to be fair, I didn't. I didn't know that I had a problem.
Yeah.
You know, so but then it got to daily drinking became probably around the age of 13 for me. And again, manipulation was a key part of my addiction. You ask any addicts and they will manipulate the hell out of anyone. So unless my old dear got me 2 cans of Diamond White, by now I was drinking cider. I liked cider, found out I didn't like beer. Okay, so I was manipulating her. So for me to go to school, she would have to get me 2 cans of Diamond White in the morning or the night before and stash them up, and 10 cigarettes. I think it was like Benson and Hedges back then when they were cheap. And I would pour the cider into like a Sprite bottle, like a small Sprite bottle, and take 2 bottles to school, you know, not to be cool. It wasn't, I didn't care who knew. I didn't want people knowing. It was just my little coping mechanism at school. I'd drink it during class and just say it was apple juice. I mean, people would twig after a while if I was a bit slurry or the smell of alcohol, but that's when it started, you know, at 13. So, but I could go back to around the age of 9 when I was that manipulative little bastard.
What do you think triggered that sort of thing? What do you think? Do you know now what triggered that, or was there something that was a defining point where you thought to yourself that you needed, you know, a form of escape, or you wanted to feel drunk, or what was the purpose behind that at that point?
My dad drank. He loved his Tennant Super, and that was the first ever beer I tried as a youngster. And that, you know, that in itself would put anyone off from ever drinking beer again. It didn't, because I was an alcoholic, you know, so I ended up drinking absolutely anything, even if I didn't like it, because I just wanted to change the way I felt. I don't know, home life was a bit difficult. My mum had her own mental health issues, you know, and I didn't really have a good relationship with my mum, and she certainly wasn't there for me as a toddler. I found out later in life I got taken away from her for a while, actually, because of her past had caught up, and she weren't dealing well with having another child, and it came to light that she'd had actually suffocated a child previous, you know, but not with my dad, you know, but I kind of found that out in later life. So she had her own struggles. I think it was that nature versus nurture. I just didn't have, my dad was okay. He was pissed half the time, but you know, fair play to him. He really like kind of took out, looked after me. You know, but I don't think I had that nurturing. I
think we
didn't really have any friends.
Well, I've seen this. You know, I've seen this story when you grow up and there's a form of addiction, alcoholism in the family. It's either a massive deterrent not to do it, or it's a massive way to copy. Like, you know, I want to be like my old man, and I think because you've said there, like your old man was fair play. I mean, he was you know, a decent enough father. He was just drunk, and you maybe want to copy that, you know. Whereas if you had an abusive father and he was violent, then you maybe go, I'll never drink a day in my life. So I can start to begin to build a picture where, you know, where that sort of came from at that young age, you know.
Yeah, I think, and not having anyone sort of around me that I could kind of count on, you know. Seeing my dad drink, you know, drinking. Even when we was on like the motorway, he'd crack open a Tennant Super. I normalised it. It became normal. It was just like, well, this is what adults do when they were smoking in the car. I mean, it's different today, you know. But back then they were smoking. You know, you'd be sat in the back of the car choking your guts out, while your parents are up front smoking, you know, cigarette roll-ups, and you know, and he'd happily like drink a Tennant Super, you know, whilst just driving and stuff. But I didn't know any different. You know, that was right. Well, that's what parents do. You know, come to find out later in life that's not the case. You know, but yeah, I think because I didn't really have anyone in my life, the drink and the drugs kind of became my best friend. And again, that's the story. Like later, it was really difficult.
Let's
That
talk
was
about
what
that.
drink it.
Let's talk about that. Let's go from, so we've got to about, you know, your sort of teenage years, your 13, 14, we're still on the alcohol at this point. And at school especially, you know, you're drinking the cider. And so where did that take you? Because, you know, we go to school normally, we're there for our education that was going to put us into our working life, you know, 16, 17. So let's go into that. So what sort of effect does that have for you going on to, you know, your ages of like 16, 17 up to about 21?
Yeah, they were dark. They were dark. About 15 years old, I was smoking cannabis. I was scared of drugs. I was really like, even though I was drinking alcohol, it was just that, oh, don't do drugs. You know, it was all around then, don't do drugs. So I was scared. But one of my friends at school, he was just like, oh, should we get stoned? I can get hold of some cannabis. And it was resin back then. And I was just like, yeah, why not? You know, I thought, well, I've had drink, you know, what's this going to be? This ain't going to do anything to me. But I was scared, genuinely scared of cannabis. But the first time I tried it, it was just like the alcohol. You know, I was warned that, oh, you'll probably be sick on the first one, you know, just take it easy. No, not at all. As soon as I smoked it, I was like, I want more, I want more, I want more. And I didn't stop, you know, and even the first night I felt, you know, it gave me a different buzz, you know. I was just like, wow. And I was happy, I was laughing, it was mellow, you know. So now I'm drinking every day and I'm smoking cannabis where I can get it, you know. I didn't really know many people that did it, so I had to kind of just rely on my friend to get hold of it, and we'd get together and just smoke as much as possible. But school life, I had no interest, absolutely no interest. I'd go in sometimes, I'd leave at like lunchtime, I'd go to certain classes that I wanted to. I didn't even have a school uniform. Got to the point where I just didn't care anymore. I just didn't care. I'd rock up with the brand new hoodies like Mizuno, like sports hoodies. I'd have the freshest kicks on, tracky bottoms. And after a while, the teachers kind of just be like, what can we do? You know, you're wearing all this decent clobber, but you're saying that you can't afford school clothes and stuff. I'm just like, no, we can't. You know, so I kind of got away with it. So for the last couple of years in school, I was just rocking up whenever I wanted to, whatever I wanted to wear, you know. And by then I was just like, who cares about authority? You know, I'll do what I want to do. So it's safe to say that I left school without sort of any real education. You know, I was throughout school, I was especially like 15, I was taking people back to my house at lunch times, or even if I weren't turning up to school, they'd pop round at lunch, get stoned, because I'd always had it by now. You know, I'd always had it by now. And it was just become a kind of hangout, you know, where people could come and drink, get stoned, you know, and do all kinds of weird things and stuff, you know. So I left school 16. Go on, sorry, Jamie.
Yeah, just you see at that sort of point, you know, and you're going to go into sort of leaving school, and I guess people then start to go their own ways and things like that, and you know, and what then was your sort of future plan? What was your thinking at that point?
I had nothing. I had no future plan. I just wanted to. I wanted to get a bit of money just so I could party and drink and take drugs. That's all I cared about. You know, I got a job in a warehouse that was kind of local, and it was became very suitable for my habit. To be fair, so I was working a bit of part time there when I started. Like I was at school, so I'd done a couple of shifts in the evening. It got to the point where I left school, and I was just like, Michael, you know, you're doing well here. There's a night shift coming up. Do you want it? And I'm just like, yeah, that'll do. And it was weekly money, and it was good money, man. It was good money for like 16 years old, cash, you know. And I was just like, yeah, that'll do. And it started at like, I don't know, it was like 1 o'clock in the morning start, but that fit in so well, you know. That really fit in so well to my drinking and drug taking and stuff. So I'd have a little BMX. I'd ride my BMX with my little backpack on, like, you know, with a little Stanley knife in, because I had the cut boxes, and, you know, I'd have my cannabis in there, and a little pipe and other bits and pieces. And I'd work there. You know, you could drink there. Other people were drinking in the workplace, because no one cared. Like, it was nighttime now. You know, no one gave a shit. Absolutely not. So we had people drinking. You know, I'd be smoking, like, whilst working, walking around the warehouse with a joint hanging out my mouth. It was perfect. But, you know, for me, I was just like, well, this is what the workplace is like. You know, this is brilliant.
Were you happy at that point? Did you feel happy?
Yeah,
You didn't know any different?
Yeah, I was happy as a pig in shit, mate. I was 16. I was taking some good money home each week. I weren't really paying out for anything. You know, if I ever wanted to buy anything, I could. And I could get drunk. I could drink whilst I'm working. Then it got a little bit more difficult, you know. The problem is, when you're drinking all the time and taking drugs and stuff, although I wasn't taking class A's until probably around the age of 17, 18, it became apparent that I couldn't get up in time, or I didn't want to be at work now. You know, I wanted the money, but I just didn't want to put the effort in now. I was just like, no, I don't feel well. You know, excuses came. I can't come in today. I'm not feeling well, you know, but then I'd still be sitting there drinking. So it come to the point where I was kicking off. I was really angry as a teenager, with the world, authority, you know, and supervisors. If they kind of said anything, I'd throw boxes, I'd kick right off in the warehouse. I wouldn't care. I'm this little 16-year-old kid, 16, 17 now, and I just didn't care. You know, I was really liked there, because I just don't think I gave a shit. You know, and I got on well with everyone. We all had a laugh. But if anything kicked off, I'd threaten them. It was absolute chaos. And it got to the point, you know, I got to about 18 years old there, and I threatened one of the supervisors, and I just kind of walked out. So yeah,
that was part of the alcohol and stuff at that point. Did you notice that it was alcohol, or did you just think it was maybe just part of your personality, or did you realize it was, you know, to do with the drugs and the alcohol?
I had this massive chip on my shoulder. If anyone's kind of, from even a young age, even at school, I just did what I wanted to do. You know, I didn't have any response to authority, police, or anything. You know, it was like, how dare you? So as soon as someone challenges me, I don't do well with it. I'm not good with confrontation. So my way of dealing with it is by kicking off, like, and harder than you kicked off. So if you're shouting at me, I'll shout at you louder. If you want to throw things at me, I'll throw things at you. You know, so I don't deal with it, and I don't deal with consequences. I just kind of walk away from it, you know, and run away from it. Whereas looking back on the times like that, I could have just accepted, you know, that I was in the wrong, and I would have still had a job. But I just didn't care. By then, I was just like, I'm not interested in working. There's other ways to make money. You know, I can get hold of drugs. Let's just sell drugs. You know, but the problem with selling drugs when you're an addict, there's never enough drugs. And you're using all your drugs, and then you still got to find the ways to pay back dealers and stuff like that. So, yeah, it wasn't.
You touched on Class A's there, and I want to progress the conversation onto that, because I think it's an important part of the journey, and I know alcoholism is a massive problem, and I'm definitely not underplaying anything else. But we're talking about cannabis, and we're talking about alcoholism, which alcohol you can buy off the shelves, and cannabis to an extent is you know, somewhat, you know, almost accepted in society, you know. And I know that they're sort of legalizing cannabis in a lot of places in the world just now. But you mentioned Class A's there, and I know that's a whole different league. It's a whole different ball game. And if you've ventured into Class A's, I'd like to sort of dig into that a little bit, and you can tell us about sort of that journey, because that's often the progression, you know, to something a lot worse.
Well, yeah, after the cannabis. So when I was at the warehouse job, there was a guy that always had speed on him. And that was the first Class A drug I tried. So it got to, like, you know, we started at 1 o'clock in the morning. My drink had worn off. You know, I'd smoked enough weed. And it got to the point where I was like tired. We didn't finish until like, 11 o'clock in the morning or something like that. So, by about 6, 7 o'clock in the morning, I needed something to pick me up. And, he was just like, hey, try some of this. So I had some of that. And like the first time I took it, I was whizzing around, I was absolutely buzzing. I was working harder than I've ever worked, but with the high, with that high always comes the low, so that was my first experience with Class A's. And I think once I tried that, I was scared about the cannabis back when I was younger, but I think now, because I tried that, it was like all bets are off. It's just like, well, actually, the drugs are all right. There's nothing wrong with them. What's there to be scared of? They actually help you. And they did for us. They did serve a purpose, for certain times in my life. But speed was definitely the one that kick-started off everything, before the cocaine and crack and heroin and, all the other bits and pieces in between. So that was definitely the point. But, speed, I'd, finish up work sometimes. We'd go back to his house after work. Then I'd go and see him at the weekends and pick up for other people. So I was kind of just picking up loads of speed and then either selling it or just doing loads. And, with that, sleep, there was hardly any sleep. I wasn't eating. And then obviously just life was just a struggle, I couldn't work anymore. I didn't want to work. I was just, there wasn't enough time in the day to get a job and drink and take drugs, so it became apparent I just had to kind of stop working, that was getting in the way. That was
you starting to lose that happiness as well, because you mentioned how you were happy at that job and you were just drinking and stuff like that. Did you start to lose that happiness?
Absolutely. Now I've not got no job. I've got no qualifications. I'm sat there with drugs, and thinking I'm happy. But in fact, I was happier when I was in the warehouse actually earning money and serving a bit of a purpose. What purpose have I got now? I'm just running around trying to scrape money together, trying to serve up to people, trying to get paid, trying to pay off people. And it was just, that in itself just became its full-time job, without realizing where I thought I was happy. I was just like, I was just living from day to day now with no prospects and no future. But that became a part of my life. But then it kind of progressed from there. I started getting in with older group than myself, and all of those done drugs, and that's why I kind of gravitated towards them. These were the cool kids. I was hanging about with them. They allowed me to be a part of their group, and it became like a daily thing that we'd all meet up, smoke, and take speed. And then I kind of tried cocaine, and yeah, that was definitely that was a night to remember. The first ever line of cocaine, mate. I fell in love. It was a massive love of my life. And from that moment on, I didn't want speed anymore. I didn't even really care about alcohol as much then. It was just cocaine. And I kind of breathed and, slept and breathed it, it was crazy times. And that was probably between kind of 18 and 20, I reckon, that I just absolutely went off on one pump.
This is a much more expensive habit, cocaine, and yeah. How did that sort of work into your life now that you're really not working and stuff anymore, and there must have been a transition point there as well, because now you're not taking the speed anymore, you're onto the cocaine. I presume that alcohol's still playing a part in this as well.
Yeah, the alcohol's still playing a part. The speed was so cheap. You could get, you could have a really good night out for a tenner, and if you try, you can't. Cocaine, back then, like half a gram or something would have done me all right. I could live on that. But it's not going to last. The more you take, the more you need. You build up this tolerance to it. So stealing became a part. Stealing off, family members, shops, and selling more drugs. I got in with a dealer that gave me like bars of solids, cannabis and stuff like that, and also cocaine. To sell, which was okay. I've made enough money just to keep myself going and my habit going. You know, that's it. I wasn't raking in it. You know, all the clothes that I had that I bought when I was working, they were still the same clothes now, like years later, that I'm wearing, thinking that I'm this some sort of Don, you know, gold chains and still stuff that I'd had when I was working. All those things that I purchased years back, you know, a couple of years back when I started working, they were the same things that I was wearing now. But the only difference is I had no money, but I had drugs, and I had drugs to sell. But the profit went up my nose, or down my throat, you know. So I had just enough to get by, but only just, you know. And it got to times in my life where I'd have to call up, and, you know, people were chasing me, like dealers were like, well, you know, have you got the money? And I'm just like, well, no, I'm still waiting. The lies came into place here, you know. I was just like manipulating the drug dealers now to give me more drugs, letting them know that I'm still waiting on so and so. Barry and John's still got to owe me like a few £100 each. They hadn't, because I've not just eaten into, I've not just snorted my profits now. I've actually snorted, you know, the actual product itself, and the money was never coming, you know. So I had to then either borrow, payday loans, you know, from selling stuff at crack converters. Any way that money I worked.
Yeah, I see a lot of. I come from Glasgow, and there's a massive, you know, drug problem and stuff in Glasgow. And often I hear these stories very similar to, you know, how this story's going at the minute, and often they turn very tragic quite quickly. And I know that, you know, we're talking a lot about, you know, you're doing this, you're doing that with drugs, and you've got in with the wrong crowd here, and usually very quickly these stories, you know, go bad, and I presume yours will probably be no different, you know. And I want to talk a little bit more about the sort of tragic turn, then the turn which should probably take you on the downward spiral. You know, if you get into this point, was, let's call it the upward spiral, there's a tragic point here which would, you know, it often ends in misery, you know. And I'm glad you're still with us today, but I would like to talk a bit, you know, about the sort of tragic parts of that and the downward spiral, if we can.
Yeah, absolutely. So I don't think I just had one rock bottom. It was several, you know. Every time it just got worse. So I'm partying a lot. There were some good times, don't get me wrong. I wouldn't have done it otherwise. It started off okay. It was manageable. It was manageable towards nearer the end part of my late teens, getting into like adulthood. So there was my drinking became problematic because there was some issues around like whatever it was, you know. I was angry when I was drinking. I was not a good drunk. Now my mum and dad, so we ended up moving. So going back, we moved from Chesington to Tunbridge in the end. I think she wanted to be closer to my nan. They passed, and we ended up staying down in Tunbridge. But she left at the age of 21. She'd had enough. I was a complete handful. I was, you know, and she wasn't really that mother figure. I think she just wanted out, you know. So by this point, I was drinking a lot, just to numb my feelings, you know. It was drink and drugs. But with that became apparent that, you know, I was an angry person, and, you know, I was getting arrested. I was getting arrested now for drunken disorderlies, causing alarm, harassment and distress to neighbours, to people on the street, public disorders, you know, all little bits and pieces. But looking back, that's kind of where it started to spiral off. I was given probation orders, community service, you know, all that stuff, but that didn't fit into my drinking and drug taking. So I kind of just, you know, put that to one side and just said, yeah, I'm not doing that, which caught up with me in the end. So my mum left around, I was probably around 20 years old, I think. She'd left now. She just got up and left. She was like, nah, see you later, I've had enough. And I was now living with my dad. My mum had left. He was drinking, but he was still working. He's always grafted. He's been one of those guys that could literally have a few beers, although be it, you know, strong beers. He would do it every single day and night, and, you know, there's no real consequences, although his marriage failed, you know, so I guess that's definitely one of them, and that's obviously played a part. But by now I was getting into a lot of trouble. I was also self-harming. I used to cut myself. So trigger warnings for anyone out there. So I was cutting myself, my wrists, legs, arms, stomach, anything really, just to kind of feel something and not, and kind of take away from the emotional pain that I was suffering right now. Then a couple of suicide attempts. I got rushed into hospital after cutting my wrists. And the self-harm team came in to kind of see me. I weren't really interested by now, even at the age of like 20 or 21. I just didn't want to be it. I really had. I was just one of these unfortunate lost souls. I wasn't meant to be born. My mum didn't want me. My dad was an alcoholic. I was just like, I didn't really have anyone. I didn't have anyone. I had this group of friends that we got smashed, but I wasn't going to tell them my problems, because they had their own problems, I think, looking back. So I've got suicides, to add to it. I tried hanging myself. And then I just couldn't do that. I couldn't do that right. I was just, I couldn't kill myself. Maybe I didn't want to. Maybe I was just kind of thinking, actually, like, if I can just get through today, there's always tomorrow. But tomorrow never came. It was just the same shit. It was always the same shit. And then I got into more trouble with police. I didn't turn up for probation. The community service I didn't turn up for, so I had a warrant for my arrest. So at 21 years of age, I went back to court. I'd seen these same 3 judges in front of me for about the last month, and I was just like, "You're back here again, are you? What are we going to do?" And it was just like, I knew I'd even took my stuff there that day. I was just like, you know what? They gave me 200 hours community service. I haven't bothered turning up. I know where this is going. Maybe this will be good for me. So, the inevitable happened, and I got sentenced. There was three different charges. I had an ABH charge. I had possession of drugs. I had causing alarm, harassment, and distress to a neighbour. So there was 3 different charges.
Drugs and alcohol related on
Yeah,
Facebook.
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. It's looking back, I've got about 4 pages of criminal charges. They're all drink or drug related. I don't get arrested when I'm sober, and I haven't been arrested since I've been in recovery. So yeah, it was all drink and drug related. And I got sentenced. They gave me a year. It ran concurrent, and but I had no emotions anymore. I didn't feel. I didn't cry. I was just like, fuck it. It is what it is. Sorry to swear. I was just like, it is what it is. So I'll get taken away and get taken to Elmley, where I'm young, and I'm a small 21-year-old. I'm not big built or anything like that. But I go there, and actually, I did 6 weeks in the end. It was like a sentence that run concurrent, good behaviour, like 3 months. You was out in like 6 weeks. So I was just kind of like, I'll use this as a bit of a break. Who goes to prison for a break? And I was just like, it might do me
at that
good.
point.
Huh?
I know you sound almost relieved that you got a sentence to get away from the life you were living. But were you, when you're in that transport and you're going to the prison, did things start to sink in about your life? And did you have any feelings towards going to prison? Were you scared or apprehensive in any way?
No, I wasn't. I would be now. If I went today, I'd be bricking it. I really, really would. I was only 21. I was kind of cocky, arrogant. Not kind of. I was arrogant and cocky. I didn't care. I think all the stuff that I'd gone through previously, it was kind of a welcome break. I was just like, well, actually, this might give me a chance to sort myself out. Maybe some time to my own faults. And I was naive as well. I was like, well, there won't be drugs, there won't be any alcohol, I won't get any of that. But anyone that's been to prison will tell you there's plenty of alcohol and drugs and stuff like that.
So it didn't help you as such going to that place then?
No, I was in there. I was really fresh, but I kind of got on well with people. I'm one of these people that I'll just go and speak to people, and I think people took me under their wing. I was in with a guy who was quite well known around Kent, Ashford way. and people knew him inside, so I was his cellmate. And the first night I was in there, he was just going, "Oh, do you want should we roll up a joint?" I'm just like, "Yeah." So I was just like, "Wow, this is all right. I'm in prison, like I'm locked up. We've got a TV. I mean, you know, I was fine in there. I was absolutely fine. So we had TV in there. I was smoking joints, you know, and I started, at one point I started making my own homebrew in there. I got caught, but I just didn't care. I didn't care. I was just like, this is all right, you know, this ain't too bad. At least I'm not getting chased for money, you know, or at least I haven't got to think about getting money for this, you know. But I wasn't obviously doing as many drugs as I was on the outside. So I was although I was doing little bits and pieces in there, it was kind of its own little detox, you know, a little bit of a break away from my normality of life on the outside, which was more chaos.
Well, how did that hit when you went back then? How did, you know, you're doing this sentence, you're still getting bits and pieces of access. You were thinking on the way there that this would be a sort of welcome break, but you know, it's turned out that you've still got sort of access to the things that you were doing on the outside. So we go from there and we get released. What does life look like after that? Had you planned on changing your life around, or?
Yeah, absolutely. I had a girlfriend at the time, so she said she'll wait for me and stuff like that. So my first thing is we stayed in contact, and the first thing I said, when I get out, it's going to be all different. You know, I've changed. In 6 weeks, I've changed. I'm a new man. You know, we'll come out. I'll come home. We'll go out for dinner, or I'll cook us something. We'll do something really nice. I'm still living at my dad's home in Tunbridge, but unknown to me, one of my friends had decided him and his missus were going to come and pick me up. I didn't know about this. I really didn't know about this. So I'm literally just outside. By then, I got transferred from Elmley to Canterbury, so I got picked up at Canterbury. So I'd done a couple of weeks there before they released me because it was closer. So I got picked up, so I come outside and they're like, "You're all right?" And I'm just like, "Oh, hi guys, you're all right?" And they was like, "Oh, we come to take you home." And I'm not brilliant, but the first thing is when I got into the car, got handed a joint, and then, you know, handed a beer, and that was it. I went straight to the off license with the money that they gave me on my release, and I was absolutely smashed before I got home. I remember my girlfriend at the time, you know, I came in, I didn't come home till late, and I got released early. I got released really early, but I just didn't come home. And nothing had changed, you know. I was out for literally, we're talking minutes. You know, it wasn't half an hour. I was waiting until they was outside waiting to pick me up, you know. And as soon as that happened, the whole process started, the whole obsession started. And I got absolutely smashed and didn't get home till late. And it just kicked off, you know. She's like, "I thought you was going to change," you know. I'm just like, yeah, but, you know, and it was like, well, you've not been in my shoes, you know. I've been inside and, you know, I've had it really hard. I didn't get up till lunchtime, you know. It wasn't difficult. The sentence I had was not difficult, and I actually really enjoyed doing it, to be fair. But I'm just like, oh, you know, I've been in, what about me? What about my feelings? You know, all this crap, that self-pity that came into play, not thinking, I couldn't give a toss about anyone else. I really didn't give a toss about her feelings. You know, how dare you have a go at me for getting smashed on the day of my release? Yeah, but we was gonna, yeah, I know, but things change, right? You know, we'll do it tomorrow. You know, we'll have our meal out tomorrow and stuff. And that, you know, and that just kind of set off my addiction again. You know, I was back out. And then my dad's, where we was living in the family home in Tunbridge, my dad had like done my room up. It was nice. He wallpapered it. Bless him, you know. And one of my mates was living there to help him out with rent and stuff like that. And although I said to myself before I'd left prison that, you know what, as soon as I get out, I'm just going to do the right thing. I couldn't, because I was an addict. I couldn't. I didn't have a choice. You know, I was always it was inevitable that I was going to go back out and drink and take lots of drugs and stuff like this. So I guess fast forwarding on.
I mean, Michael, you've told us, I mean, we're here and you've had suicide attempts. You've, you know, argued with XYZ person, girlfriends. You got in trouble with the police. We're doing drugs here. You've even had a prison sentence, and you come right out and you're right back into that again. So Well, I mean, I know you as a clean living person. You're relatively successful in what you do now, and you're making impact in other people's lives. But what was it? What was, if all that didn't help you to change your life around? What was the sort of defining turning point in your life, and what got you to that point?
And it was many years after that, man. 21, I was invincible back then. I really was. I was so cocky and sure of myself that everything would work out all right. To be fair, so I guess fast forward, like when my mum and dad got divorced, they got divorced in the end. She left, so they had to sell up the family home. So my dad had to move like from 3-bedroom house. He didn't have no money. He moved into a studio apartment, which I stayed in for a while. But I was drinking and taking more drugs there. I ended up obviously, I was self-harming more. But I got in with the self-harm team. I was in hospital quite often from overdosing as well, and self-harming. But there was a guy called David Foster Smith. He saved my life, this guy, to be fair. And he was part of the mental health team. And he helped me get into a homeless hostel. That's where I found more drugs. It was like a little mini prison, So I was living in this homeless hostel, but everyone was some sort of addict or alcoholic. There was heroin addicts there, and I'd never done heroin. I was crack, I was snorting all sorts of things, morphine, temazepam up my nose, anything that could get crushed up. I'd even started smoking heroin with a guy. I injected myself one evening. That was one thing that I was never going to do. I was never going to do heroin. But when you're an addict, if it's there, you're going to do it. So I did that, and luckily I didn't get hooked. I was ill for a little bit after a few days of smoking, chasing it and stuff like that. But crack, I ended up doing lots of crack in there, and that just become again, if you're doing cocaine, that's expensive. But if you're on the pipe, it doesn't last long. It does not last long, and you're just always trying to chase that hit. And there's many more years of just in and out of the addiction side of things for me. So what did you want to know when I kind of actually started to build my life again?
You're deeply, from an outside looking in, you're in a real deep dark place. You've speaking to mental health professionals. You're going into the sort of self-harm centre. You've tried to commit suicide. You've spoke about overdosing. You've been in prison, but yet none of that's really flicked a switch on you to change your life around. But I know you as a person that's, you're clean living now. You're a self-confessed addict, but you're not on, any drugs or alcohol or anything like that. You're clean. And I just wanted to know what was the defining point where you go, that's enough. Like, no fucking no more,
All right, so we're going to fast forward to about 2008. I was living I had a studio flat. It was funded by my dad, to be fair. After his divorce settlement and stuff like that, he saved some money up. And I had this little flat in Tunbridge Wells, which was it was a drug den. That's all it was. It was purely for partying. That's what it was. And that it was a good time, but also a shit time. It really was. I'd had headaches for about a month, banging headaches, and I was just still stuffing everything up my nose that possible, and I was just blaming it. Maybe I'm just congested or something like that. I just got to take a bit of a break from it, but I couldn't, clearly. I was out one night in Tunbridge Wells drinking. Of course, why would I be out otherwise? And I came out of a pub and I passed out. I'd only had a couple of beers. It was an early night. It was really early. I had a couple of beers and passed out. One of my mates kind of picked me up. I didn't know much about it, but he took me up to the local hospital. We was talking about a 10-minute walk from where we was. And I was kicking and screaming. It was like a Saturday night, I'd smelt of drink. So they obviously just thought, and they'd seen me before. They knew me, this hospital. And they knew me. The only time I was ever in hospital was through self-harming, overdose, drugs, alcohol, or if I'd been arrested and taken there by the police, one of them. Yeah. So I was very well known to them. And because I smelt of alcohol, and I was screaming in pain. For my head. I was telling them that my head is hurting, but they was just like, keep it down, you're swearing, it was just another normal night for Michael to be in a hospital. There was obviously something that had happened in the hospital, but because the next thing that I know, I'm actually in an ambulance being rushed up to King's College Hospital up in London. I don't know what's going on. No idea what I'm doing in this ambulance. I have no idea. But I know I was in pain. Like, the pain was excruciating. It was right in the back of my head. It felt like my head was going to explode. That's all I can describe it. It was just ready just to go bang. So when I got there, they said, right, we need to operate on you, like now. Like, well, what's up? And it was just like, you've got a blood clot, you've got hematoma, and you've got a blood clot on the back of your brain. And I'm like, right, okay, well, what's my chances? And they're like 50-50. So I'm up in the hospital. Next thing I know, obviously I've pulled through because I'm here speaking with yourself, Jamie. But I was morphined off my tits. I pulled through. I just survived yet again. I just survived. You know, I was invincible. I survived this blood clot, and there was a guy that was in hospital at the time when I was recovering in the ward. There was this guy that was had something wrong with his back, and you know, he smoked weed. So I'm outside with this massive scar in the back of my head, like proper raw, morphined out of my face, smoking weeds. And that was probably about 12 hours after my operation. Like, the insanity of my addiction was there. It was there straight away. I just literally just had my life saved, and I'm outside smoking weed. 8 days I was in that hospital for. 8 days with oral morphine. I loved it. Weirdly enough, I can still go back to that time and just be like, I was off my nut. And I was being cared for as well. You know, people were cared. I didn't have to do anything. I didn't have to worry about money. It was like that prison time, you know. My food was being delivered to me, like the nurses were being nice, you know. But 8 days, there was like, right, we think you're all right to go home. And I had no money. I had nothing. I wasn't working. I had a flat that my dad was funded for. So they sorted out some transport from London down into Kent for me. As soon as I got into Kent, I got straight on the phone to a drug dealer. I was literally coming home. So I got them to deliver me some packets. I went down to the off license. I had this massive bandage thing on the back of my head. You know, it was still like, it was raw. It was so raw. I went down the off license, and they're like, "You're all right?" And I'm just like, "Yeah." And I was like, "Well, you got what's up with your head?" I've just come out of hospital from had a blood clot, and they're like, "Right, okay. Should you be here?" I'm like, "Yeah. Can I just have 3 bottles of sherry, please?" You know. So I'm back in my little flat. I've got some cocaine now. I've got a girl come round. I've ordered a pizza. Don't know why I've ordered pizza. I've just got powder. Pizza ain't going to get it eaten, and it didn't. So I've got this girl round. I've got my cocaine. I've got alcohol. I've got a pizza for next day because I ain't going to get eaten. And I was happy. I thought I was happy. I was just like, you know, they've saved my life. You know, I've got a girl round. I've got some powder. But that was the complete insanity. Nothing had changed. They've literally just saved my life. You know, I've got my life saved from when I've tried to overdose, the blood clot, the self-harm. And nothing changed. But it kind of, I think around a couple of years later, it was 2012 when I kind of really got it. So it was 4 years after this blood clot, I was still living within that insanity. But I think something changed, even though I came out of it that night, that day, and started getting back on it. There was something there going, you know what, you've had your life saved. This is a real chance to do it. But it wasn't overnight. I got in touch back with, so a couple of years later, I'd lost my flat again, completely lost my flat. I was basically living in another homeless hostel. But then I got put in. So I saw the David Foster Smith from the mental health team. I had a meeting with him again, and I was like, mate, I can't be in a homeless hostel. I'm going to end up dying. I've cheated death enough times now. You know, I think I was getting older, you know, and I was like, this ain't fun anymore. I'm looking around, everyone's got like homes, they've got families, you know, and I'm an absolute shell of a person. And I said, look, I can't live in this hostel. I can't do it anymore. I need to get out of this lifestyle. So he put me in touch with this Bridge Trust organisation, and I had I had to. They didn't want me in there. They didn't want me in their properties. I mean, I got like they've looked at my conviction list. You know, they've looked at all this shit that I've gone through, and they're just like, we don't know if we can help you. And I was like, you know, I need to start somewhere. Please give me an opportunity. I'll do whatever it takes. You know. So I had to sign a lot of things. I had to go to like a day drug rehabilitation. Every day I had to be there from as soon as it opened until it shut, basically. Every day I had to engage with the mental health team. I had to do loads of different things. I couldn't have alcohol in the property, you know, all these little bits and pieces. But I just thought, you know what, let's just do it. Let's give it a go. And so it was probably around, it wasn't 2012, that's when I met my wife. So it was probably around, it was about 2 years after I'd had the blood clot. So we're looking at about 2010. I'm actually now living in a house share with people that are, it's not a big house share, it's people that want to move on with their life. They're not necessarily high risk, but I was. They always knew that, I think. But I did everything they asked me to do because I just thought, you know what, if this is the one shot, this is probably my last chance of actually getting some sort of normality in life. So I did it. I just stuck with it. I was just like, right, well, I'm not going to drink. I did. So it was around 2010. I wasn't stopped. I'd still go out and binge. I found Alcoholics Anonymous. I was going there. I was doing a day course thing in Tunbridge called CRI at the time. You know, they done like key working sessions. They helped me liaise with other professionals and stuff like that, and they could help towards like the housing register and stuff like that. So I kind of just stuck with it, although I was still dabbling, you know, now and then. It wasn't nowhere near as bad. I was kind of having a binge here and a smoke up and a few drugs, but nothing like it was, you know. But then I kind of got to the point, it was around 2012. I really got deep into it. I was just like, you know what, let's just try and not, let's just try and go a month, but do it on like a day-to-day basis. And I did. I'd done anything I could. So I went to church. I'm not religious whatsoever. I basically did anything in my day that I could do to not have a drink or drug and just keep it going. So I went to church in the mornings. I went to CRI, like their recovery program. I stayed there all day. You know, I ran in the evenings. I was eating healthier. I was still living in the house share, but people around me, they weren't drinking. They weren't addicts. You know, these were people that wanted to sort their lives out. And I kind of took that, and it became like another part of my addiction and start the whole process of recovery. And day by day, I was going to meetings through AA, CA, Narcotics Anonymous, any kind of meeting I could get to. Then I'd meet people and they'd be like, oh, do you want to lift to this one? I'd be like, yeah. You know, so it kind of become a new addiction for me. And it was like day to day. I wasn't drinking, you know. And I was like, wow, I've done a month. I've done a month of not absolutely anything. And then my life started to get that little bit better. I just started to have a bit more clarity. I kind of thought, well, actually, you know, maybe it's time to start working now or boosting my CV. Maybe I can start doing things. So I was volunteering for kind of anything at the moment. I became a peer mentor at the recovery program, you know, so I was there co-facilitating groups with the people that had, like with the staff, you know, and it weren't a long time back that, you know, I was sitting on the other side of it and then, you know, helping other people. So I was just like, wow, this is absolutely amazing. You know, so I now had a purpose. Yeah. And I think back from then, I always kind of knew that I wanted to help other people, you know, because there was many people out there that gave me such a chance, you know, at sorting myself out. So I was very passionate about that. And I even started, it was 2013, I met my wife. Actually, you know, my now wife. You know, I started dating. I was out there. I wasn't working full time. I was still in my early days of recovery. You know, so I was just like, I got told early on, just take it a little bit easy. You know, don't just jump into anything. And we did. We dated for a while and stuff like that. I was looking at getting involved in working again. I wanted to now work full time. I wanted to physically go and get a job and earn some money. And I did, you know. I started a job in sales. I had no interest in doing it, but I thought, you know what, let's give it a go. And from there, it's just boosted. My life's just become, you know, today I've got a wife, we've got a son, I've got a mortgage, I've got a car, you know, I've been on holidays, I've got all these wonderful things, and now I've got, you know, now I can actually help other people. I've got some good time, like since like about 2012, you know, I've got some good recovery time behind me.
No, that's good.
So it's,
Do you know, Michael, as well? I'm glad we got to this point where we've, you know, you've got these nice things in nice lives. And this is obviously the Michael I know. I didn't know you previous, you know, and I'm so glad you've sort of told that story. And you know, you've got to this sort of recovery point, and you clearly said there that you know you were at Alcoholics Anonymous and a few of the different sort of help groups and things like that. And I'm just wondering if you can sort of shed some advice to anybody that might be watching this that's gone through any form of, you know, addiction, mental health issues, something like that. And even if it's just your own personal advice, what would you say to them just now to give them that sort of bit of help and try and get them out of the situation? Where would you direct them, and what would your advice be to them?
There's with the addiction side of thing, it is difficult. I mean, with me, I could have found the rooms like Alcoholics Anonymous and all that. I could have found that about the age of 21. If I really want to go back, you know, I could have found it a lot earlier. I just wasn't ready, you know. But I think, you know, you need to be ready. You need to want to do it for yourself. If you're going to try and go and do it for someone else, I don't think it's going to work. I mean, but you got to start somewhere, right? You know. Some people don't like this 12-step programs. That's fine. You know, I just think there is plenty of support out there, and it doesn't have to be a 12-step program. What works for one person may not necessarily work for another. But I think you've got to just try something, you know, and give it a go. There's lots of organisations out there that you can just use on the phone, you know. So I think the first step is kind of admitting that you've got a problem. You know, once you can kind of relate to that and admit that you've got a problem, then I think you've kind of got a responsibility then to start seeking the help. Phone up the Alcoholics Anonymous helpline, you know, phone up the Samaritans, phone up Mind, go onto their websites, you know. There's so many avenues and channels now that can offer support. You know, there's drug rehabilitation centres. They change each year their name, but they do the same. It's the same principles. You know, they get a 4-year tender, like CRI, CGL. It changes. Kenwood Trust. There's all different places within the UK that have their own centres, and that's like programs. It's not a 12-step program.
Yeah.
They offer key working sessions. They can, and it's not just around your addiction. They can help you grow. It's grow, change, live. You know, that's what it is. Or change, growth, live. So it's all about trying to access some support, but there is plenty of support out there. But unfortunately, it's got to be who accesses it.
Yeah. Is there support also for anyone who may be living with the effects of someone who's addicted? Because often it's, you know, when that person's in the moment of their addiction, they don't really notice everything and all the chaos that's happening around them. And usually it's the loved ones and friends and family that suffer. And often they're suffering. You know, it's heartbreaking for them to watch, and they don't often know what they can do or how they can help. Do these sort of helplines and addiction centres, are they also, can they help or direct in a way, you know, of the people around an addict?
Yeah, they can certainly direct someone. I think if you're the on the other side of it and you're living with a person, you need to have boundaries in place as well, because you normally become an enabler. That's the problem. You normally enable that person because maybe that's your way of supporting them. You know, for me, my dad supported me by giving me money. You know, but that wasn't the right support. You know, there needs to be boundaries in place, and you need to set those boundaries. But support, I'd say, is something like Al-Anon. They do, so it's along like through the Big Book and stuff like that. So they have support groups for family members and loved ones that are trying to get through and support someone with an addiction. But it's not necessarily about supporting that person. It's about them as well, because they're going through that addiction on the other side, which is, you know, I put so many people through so much heartbreak and heartache and chaos, you know. But there is definitely support out there, and you know, just phone up some of the organisations. Like if you speak to Alcoholics Anonymous, they're brilliant. Their helplines are amazing. They will point you in the right direction. They're not just going to go, you have to come here, you have to come here. If you need help, they can signpost you to other places. But also you've got Samaritans in Mind, you know, other organisations that have got so many kinds of different resources on all kinds of mental health issues and addictions and recovery centres.
That's brilliant. I'll add them all in at the end for sure, so that, you know, anyone that may be watching this is, no matter what side of the fence you're on, I'll put them up there and they can contact us. So you've been, from what I see now, you know, you speak well, you're helping a lot of other people. You know, anyone that's on that Clubhouse app will know you certainly and know the rooms, and there's a massive element of success to your life now, you know, from all these dark places and stories, suicide attempts, prison, drugs, alcohol, you know, all different classes of drugs as well. Now, you know, that anyone would look from the outside looking in now will go, that's a reasonable amount of success you have on your life. And that's a fantastic pain to power story. You know, it's a inspired by you story. And I'm really happy that you're with us now. And I'm happy that I'm hearing your contributions, because it's impacting myself, and I know it's impacting my team, because we've heard you speak in rooms and things like that. And we're just wondering if you can just promote your rooms, just tell us a bit about what you're actually actively doing now, because I find it really fascinating, interesting. As I say, you speak well, and I actually know you're running a celebrity room as well on Clubhouse, which I'd like to just to tell us about some of the celebrities you've got on, you've had on, plan to have on, and just what your sort of movements are about.
Yeah. It's sometimes, you know, for the people that don't know me as from when I used to be to like now, it's just, they can't get their head around it. They can't, because they've not seen me through that. Even my wife, she's not seen me through that. And some of the stories that I say sometimes, she looks at me like, what? Like, do you know what I mean? Like, are you sure? And I'm like, yeah, I've still got the scars I've got the scar, I've got the old war wounds, I've got like the massive scar on the back of the head, I've got scars on my wrists and other bits and pieces. People can't believe it, you know, my life. Sometimes I wake up and like, did that even happen? Like, because my life's completely different now. I'm a responsible adult these days, mate. You know, it's absolutely bonkers, and I'm a pillar of the community. I'm not feared. I don't get arrested anymore. How crazy is that, right? Yeah, so successful in my work as well. So I do sales, and you know, I've just jumped up. So I jumped from one company, I've gone to a bigger company. You know, things are doing really well in my life, and then Clubhouse has come about. And I jumped on there, and I think maybe, I don't know if you did, but you know, people that don't know Clubhouse, it's a social audio app, like a social media audio app, and like it's difficult to explain, but it's definitely it's an amazing platform. It really is. And when I jumped on, I was just like, what am I doing here? Like, this has got nothing to do with like the business kind of thing, you know. I'm not going to get business from it. But actually I started noticing people were kind of doing like sobriety rooms, and you know, I was like, oh wow, you know, there's people are actually like running like AA rooms here, not affiliated with Alcoholics Anonymous, but they're kind of similar rooms, right? So people are in a pandemic at the minute, and actually people can get onto this Clubhouse and actually share what's going on. How mad's that? And I jumped into a lot of them. I'm like, these are brilliant. So my thing was just like, well, it's not all about drink for me. It's not all about drink, you know. What about people that have got heroin addictions or you know, or gambling addiction or sex and love addiction, you know? There's so many addictions and there's so many things. And I'm just like, well, you know what? We've got an opportunity to create something now. So let's create an addiction and recovery Clubhouse. Let's do that. Let's get it started. So I did. And you know, it's growing. It's only like a couple of weeks old. You know, we've got some followers. We've got some good followers. We've got some members. We're going to come up with a schedule. But here, people can come and share their shit. You know, and you can. if you're in a room, if you're an addict and you're in a room with another addict, you've always got something to talk about. You really, really have. You can relate to so much, you know. When people are having a great day, you can relate to that when you're on cloud nine, and also when it's a shit day, you know, you can relate to all the heartache and the chaos that they're living through at the moment. So we kind of created this space, so for people can come and create rooms with under a clubhouse for addiction and recovery. And yeah, it's doing well. You know, we've got an admin team. You know, we're setting up rooms. It's not every day, all day yet, but you know, that's the kind of idea. We want people to build a community within that banner now, so they can actually open rooms themselves and talk about any kind of addiction and recovery. So it's exciting. It's new. It's still in its its infancy, but we're hoping. And you know, I've looked at some other rooms. We will have thousands of members. You know, we will get that, and it's also a place where people can feel some sort of unity as well. Because at the moment, especially in the pandemic, people are not getting to physical meetings. They're relying on the Zoom call, and sometimes people don't want to be on a Zoom. Some people might just want to be a voice, you know. So that's where Clubhouse has come into play, and it's really taken off, and it's been so helpful for people that are going through some sort of mental health, anxiety, depression, addiction. You know, it's saving people's lives. I think genuinely, I think it's saving people's lives from sharing.
I agree.
You know, so it's fantastic.
And I think, yeah, and I appreciate you, and I appreciate people like yourself who take the time to set up rooms like this, to campaign like this, and to speak their truth. I think you're right. I think what you said there, it saves lives. And even the numbers game, even if you're only reaching one, and that's that one person's life you save, that's a difference to the planet. We're not here to save everyone, but if we can save, you know, one person, or we can get a message across to one person that shows them that there's a brighter tomorrow, or there even is a tomorrow, then you're on the right path. And yeah, I really, really appreciate that. I respect you for doing it, and I respect your journey as well. And I'm sure many others that watch this will probably be feeling the same, especially if they've went through something similar, either watching it, you know, from the outside, or actually being a participant in that. You've also got on a little bit of a brighter note, you're doing a celebrity room as well, I believe, and it's kicked off okay. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, well, as we know on Clubhouse, there are celebrities on there. You know, it all started off when I was talking to Anthony Costa, the legend from Blue, the boy band Blue, and we was just chatting one day on Clubhouse, and he was new to it, and I was just like, "You all right, mate? Do you need any advice or help?" And you know, because I see you're on here, you still got your party hat on, and stuff like that. And we just spoke about a few bits and pieces, and I gave him, you know, this is like the basics of Clubhouse. And he was like, brilliant. He was just like, so what, we can set a room up? And I was just like, yeah. He goes, well, how about, I said, well, maybe, how about we do one and introduce you to Clubhouse? You know, you're new on here, and people might not know you're on here. And he was just like, oh, well, let's set up a room tonight then. I was like, all right, okay. So we did an evening with Anthony Costa from Boy Band Blue, you know. And it was brilliant. He is amazing. He is so down to earth, man. Absolutely. And it wasn't a Clubhouse thing. We just done it under a room, you know, and people came, he shared, like, people were asking questions. Someone even tried to get him sing at the end, and he was having none of it. And I was like, yeah, I don't think he's going to be singing, but, you know, we'll work on him. But no. But yeah, he was so down to earth. He's such a lovely guy, you know. And I was so thankful to him. But then I was just like, well, actually, like, celebrities, there is no other platform. There is no way in hell. Like, there's no other platform that you're going to get so close to someone in the public eye, but yet so far away. You know, you're not going to get that. So I was just like, well, look, I'll create. And then I thought, well, hang on, if I create a Clubhouse that's called, I called it a celebrity hangout. And I just thought, well, this could be a place where members can join, like the likes of Anthony, and now we've got some other people on board. But these guys can actually come and share a safe space. So if they want to do a Q&A, they're able to do that. They're members. They can do what they want now. But we can also host things as well. So we can do like Q&A, but also, what about what are they doing after lockdown? Because to be fair, they're giving us their time. So we're just like, right, well, look, you need to be promoting what's going on for you. So we've done that. You know, we created it. I don't have much reach with the celebrity world. You know, I'm an addict. You know, that's I'm a recovered addict. So I don't really have much connections with the celebrity lifestyle. But I think because I kind of connect people on Clubhouse, and I think that's what I do in my job in real life. I connect people up, and they know there's no hidden agenda. There's no hidden agenda. I've got an addiction and recovery clubhouse where I'm helping people, you know, and I kind of want to help the celebrities to kind of be on the platform, but in a safe space. And it went that well with Anthony, and I was just like, well, hang on, I'll just make the clubhouse. But as I said, I don't really know the world. So I said to a guy that's on there, Christian, he's been in the entertainment industry, man. He's lived and breathed it, you know. And I was like, look, co-found it with me. Let's do something. And he was just like, yeah, all right, okay. So, he's hopefully bringing some of his contacts over. And we just thought, well, let's set it up and see how it goes. And we did one last night that you jumped into. It was a bit of a rushed one last night, unfortunately, because the lady got the time.
It was great value in there, and I think these are doing good things in the space. And plus, you are raw. Your story is out there. You know. I said your balls are out the bath. You know, everybody sees what they get with you, and I think that will gravitate a lot of people towards you. I think you'll do just fine, and you are doing good just now. And I think you'll just go from strength to strength. You know, like you have now in your recovery journey. So I'm really glad you came on the show today. I think there's so much value, and you've shined a light on, hope for people out there, that may be going through some of their dark times in life, whatever it may be, that you can get through it. There is a tomorrow. There can be light at the end of the tunnel, and even further than that, not just recovery, but a successful life beyond what you probably imagined at the time you were going through it. So absolutely, really appreciate you sharing that story with us. I think it's vital, and I'm glad you were so sort of in depth with it, and you were very open with us. I like to end these podcasts on two questions. The first question is quite a simple one. It's basically, what advice have you got for whether your future self, or what do you look at when you're moving forward and visioning forward? Is a little bit of advice and tip. I don't like to go. A lot of people talk about what advice should you give your 10-year ago self, and it's pointless because you're here now. But what advice do you give yourself going forward on a daily basis?
So the daily basis is just carry on doing what I'm doing each day. It is one day at a time in recovery. I try not to think too far ahead, and I can't. I can only live in the day, and that's it. I just try and strive forward a little bit. With work outside of Clubhouse and stuff like that. With work, I'm always looking to try and push forward to the next part of my life. So maybe, well, actually, like I'm doing well in this. Let's see if I can progress within that. But also not to beat myself up if my day doesn't go well. Then there's again, I'll go to bed that night and I'll wake up clean the next day, and I'll start it over again and be like, right, let's give this another go. So just to kind of give yourself some time, just live into the day, live into the present. Don't try and manifest things too fast ahead, but always have something. There's always something that I'm trying to think about. And I can put it out there, to the universe and be like, look, this is what I'm trying to achieve, and just strive towards something. Have some goals. Have some goals. It doesn't matter necessarily how big they are, but just you can kind of work on it bit by bit each day. If you've got a really big goal, do some work on it today. Do some work on it tomorrow. Keep doing work on it until you get that little bit closer. And getting rid of your fear. How about taking some chances now? If opportunities come up, don't feel like oh, I'm an addict, I'm not good enough, I can't do that. I've done so much. I passed my driving test, man. I've never done anything in my addiction. I've done so many things in recovery. I can do pretty much anything now, as long as I kind of just keep it simple. So advice, live in the day for me, but just keep chipping away at your dreams. I never thought I'd be doing a podcast, man. So
No, it's great. Listen,
No
it's a
more
blinding story. It's absolutely fantastic, and that's why I had to have you on. So my second one's it's a little bit cheeky. What I say is, you know, this is called Inspired by You. I think every single person on this planet, whether they know it or not, I think their story is inspiring. And often people just need that little nudge to tell their story and maybe a platform so that others can hear. So what I always ask my guests at the end is, if you're to nominate one person that should come on the podcast show, if you give me their nomination, what I'll do is I'll run with that and I'll try my damnedest to get them on the show. So who would your nomination be to tell their Inspired by You story? Who inspires you?
I'm going to go for it. So Celebrity Hangout last night, we had Hollywood actress Breanne Davis.
Okay, let me write that down. I want to write that.
She is amazing, man. She is absolutely amazing, and she does some great work, you know. And she's got a good story to tell. She really has, and I've been very fortunate enough to have her not just on the Celebrity Hangout, but under my other banner. So she would, yeah. I'm nominating Breanne. She might kick my ass, but yeah, good luck. I can try and help you with that one.
You know, I really appreciate it. Do you know what it is? And just these platforms, as you said before, these stories might be somebody else's, you know, survival guide. And I think it's so important that we share our stories and we learn to talk up, you know, and speak our truth. And it's okay, you know, if it's helping you, if it's healing you, if it's helping or healing others, we're doing something. If that's all we're doing something right in the world, you know. So yeah. Listen, Michael, thank you very much for coming on the show today. I really appreciate it, and I think you've gave excellent value, and just thank you for sharing your truth, you know. Thanks very much.
Jamie, thank you, buddy. Thanks ever so much for having me, man. As I said, this is my first podcast. I'm sorry if I've waffled on and you know, but I kind of skip bits, but I think that's part of like ADHD as well. So, but yeah, no, I've enjoyed it, and you know, and I'm hoping that we can do a little bit more together on Clubhouse as well, mate.
Absolutely. So there you have it, people. That's another episode of Inspired by You. Thank you to our guest, Michael Drane. And you know the routine by now. If you like what you heard, click, share, like, join the MindKite app, join our YouTube channel, follow us on Clubhouse, follow us on Instagram. Everything's at MindKite. Thank you very much. I'll see you next time.